latest sports news, updates, game previews, breakdown, and analysis in, around, across, and beyond the Ateneo. And now, let's get ready to run down! Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Alright, what is up, Blue Eagle Nation? And to our Ateneo Lady Eagles volleyball fans and Team Pilipinas volleyball fans, we are serving up literally a treat for you today at Radyo Katipunan Sports. Once again, you're hanging out with me, Anthony. And although my friend over here is from the other side of Katipunan, I'm excited to have my fellow Newbies Broadcasting Academy batchmate. He's also a volleyball writer / analyst. We got Lawrence Andrew Fernandez joining us today.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Ayan. Lawrence is over here to help us, break down our Ateneo Lady Eagles campaign at the PVL Collegiate Conference, as well as the Pilipinas National Volleybells over at the ASEAN Grand Prix. Of course, to our Ateneans over here, Lawrence is actually the brains and, of course, the voice behind the Limahan podcast. Lawrence, saan ba natin pwede mo follow yan?
Spotify, Castbox, wherever you get your podcast.
Please follow him. Like his podcast. Listen to it. This guy's he knows what he's talking about. All right. So Lawrence, since you're on the bluer side of Katipunan today,
That's why I wore blue today.
ako yung shorts ko blue.
Mahirap na, baka harangin sa gate. Uy, bakit ka naka-maroon? No offense.
Sige. So start muna natin off with some PVL Collegiate Conference action with our Ateneo Lady Eagles. Now, of course, the most recent game of the Lady Eagles, they were able to sweep the Perpetual Help Lady Altas to enter the semis of PVL Collegiate Conference. And now, Lawrence, it's going to be a rematch of last year's
technically
UAAP finalists. Now, how are you liking the matchup again with UST?
Going to Ateneo's composition this year, it's like a paradigm shift from last year. Kasi from last year, your strength was your blocking the middle blockers because you had Maddie and Bea De Leon. Now, the strength of the team comes from the wings or the spikers because you now have the rookie Faithness Perez and the blossoming Erica Raagas to complement Jules Amonte and Pongay Gaston. So in a span of one season, the focus of the offense of the Lady Eagles has shifted from the middle to the wings. Different. So that's a different view that UST must handle.
Right.
So I still consider this a very exciting 3-game series, yung maximum. So if it goes 3 games. On the other hand, the strength of Ateneo last season, that was one of the major improvements of UST naman for this collegiate conference because of the rookie Aimee Hernandez, Jana Tuazon.
Yes.
So they have bolstered their blocking naman as compared to Ateneo improving on the wings. So that's a chess match waiting to happen between two great head coaches and Coach O and Coach Kung Fu. So it boils down to a really exciting series. It wouldn't be a surprise if it goes 3 games.
Really, to the limit again, huh?
To the limit, yes.
Yes, okay. Now, Lawrence, balikan natin konti yung the other matchup of the Ateneo Lady Eagles heading to the semifinals. They were able to recover from their 4-set setback against Adamson, where Trisha wrote a stellar chapter in the book of Genesis.
Yep.
She fired a game-high 19 points over here. Pero, in terms of their dynamic on the court, in terms of their play, what proved to be the biggest difference in the Lady Eagles' comeback victory versus, Perpetual?
I guess Adamson you couldn't disregard their rookies also. They have a talented pool of rookies coming in, most especially their setter, Louis Romero, who I believe is an upgrade from the current Adamson setters in Igao and Yandok. I've seen these three setters play.
Right.
I've seen Louis Romero play in the Rebesco Volleyball League last year, and she really is great in distributing the ball. And sometimes when you have a player like that, it eases the flow of the game for the hitters, for the spikers, and you can fool the defense of the other team also, because you can distribute the ball anywhere without them reading the play. So I guess that's what happened essentially to the game between Ateneo and Adamson. Romero was able to distribute the ball very well, and that enabled Genesis to have a good game,
Right.
because she was also supported very well by for some reason by the other spikers like si Almonte and si Cruz and the other spikers that Adamson had. So even though Genesis had the high mark, there were also other players who had a few bunch of points. I guess Coach Almadro saw that and then made necessary adjustments against Perpetual, and Jaya Marginot played a great game against Perpetual.
Of course.
So that's why whatever Louis Romero did against the Lady Eagles, for some reason, or maybe Maraginot took a few pointers, and that's why they were able to win against Perpetual.
All right. Now, Lawrence, I think also a major factor in this, the Lady Eagles able to reach the semifinals of the PVL Collegiate Conference was the return of a certain Faith Nisperos coming from a viral infection. No? She was sidelined for a game. But over here, she uncorked 14 attacks en route to a 15-point outing. No? Just tell me how impressed are you by this rookie?
Well, she has been impressive ever since she was in NU. She is a multiple MVP, and that goes to show that there is really talent residing in her. And what's more impressive is usually when you have rookies, there is room to adjust. There is an adjustment period, so to speak. So you wouldn't expect them to really blossom immediately. But for Nisperos, there's no adjustment period. She's been doing this for so long.
Exactly.
Ever since she was young, and she's just continuing it in another school. So things are looking bright for the Lady Eagles, for especially on their hitters rotation right now. So I believe that would be their strength coming into UAAP season 82.
Right.
The blocking is will be will have to be fine-tuned. Although Joanne Narit is an intriguing talent prospect for the Lady Eagles.
That too, yes.
Yes, but so far in the wins of the Lady Eagles, it's really the hitting that propels them to victory.
True. Now, Lawrence, actually, Coach Oliver also sounded about Faith Nisperos, and he commended about how Faith Nisperos she was very willing to play the role of a leader, with Bongay Gaston skipping out one game after being under the weather, and this is also impressive. Sabi ni Coach Oliver na what's nice with Faith is that she really listens and tries harder para makorek yung details na kinokorek sa kanya. She has the talent and she is still growing. Talagang unti-unti lang dapat. How important is that, that characteristic, that attitude, especially for young players now to have?
Well, for young players, you always should have the mentality that you don't know anything, even though if you're talented. Talent can take you up to a certain extent, but that's why you need a mentor to refine or to even make a better version of you. That's why, yes, no question about it, Faith Nisperos definitely has the talent.
Right.
She wouldn't be multiple juniors MVP if she didn't have it.
Sure.
But even ever since she was in NU and now in Ateneo, she really is eager to learn, and that is a good trait as always for any athlete out there. Because when you were eager to learn, you push yourself to even greater heights, and more importantly, you become an inspiration to the other athletes in your team or the people around you, because if a leader in Nisperos is willing to work hard, then everybody else does.
Of course. Of course. Now, Lawrence, a while ago you mentioned about Ateneo's new setter, Jaja Maraguinot, no? She was in this game versus Perpetual, she was just churning out the offense, no? Delivering 22 excellent sets. The Lady Eagles rained down 37 attacks off of those. She also waxed hot from the service line, netting 4 aces. I mean, given the absence of Dina Wong, no, due to a stress fracture over here, no, how has Jaja Maraguinot, no, just been able to, fill in for that huge hole left behind by Dina Wong?
What's good about Maraguinot's performance, even from season 81 up until now, she continues to gain confidence, because we know that eventually Dina will leave the campus. Maybe it will be her last season in season 82. We're not sure, but at least you have now Ateneo now has a security blanket that if in case Dina would need more time to heal that stress fracture, you have an able, you couldn't say backup anymore, because she is parang 1A 1B na yun eh. You have an able setter who knows the offense and has the confidence to distribute the ball. So that's a boost of morale for the Lady Eagles, because regardless of who plays, whether it's Dina or Jaja, you know that you'll get scores, you'll know you'll get points, and you'll know you'll get your hits.
True. And you know what, Lawrence, no, she has been just as remarkable as you described, because her orchestrating of the Lady Eagles offense, that was very crucial to their 3-0 start over here, the PVL Collegiate Conference. I mean, she generated 25.67 excellent sets per game, including a 33 set performance versus San Beda. That really shows, okay, this setter, this setter combination between Wong and Maraguinot is quite formidable, to say the least. No?
It's one of the I believe in recent memory, it's one of the strongest setter duo that the Lady Eagles had in recent memory. That's a big luxury, and then couple it with able hitters like Nisperos and Gaston and Samonte and even Raagas. So you're settled on the wings and on the playmaking already.
Yun. So things are looking up for the Lady Eagles, and heading into game 1 of the semifinals scheduled on September 28th. This is an early preview from Lawrence and I. Coach Oliver just had to say this: whatever it is, we just have to keep the faith in Nisperos, insert over there in what we're doing, trust each other, and be courageous in everything that we do. So again, Lady Eagles have a deadly setter and hitting combination, diba? With Nisperos and Jaja Maraguinot. So these rookies, they're sure to lead the charge for the Lady Eagles, especially when it comes to the semifinals. Now, Lawrence, usapang bayan naman tayo. No? This was trending on Twitter last night. Some for not so very good reasons. So Lawrence and I, volleyball fans out there, we'll try to filter for all the noise. We're trying to be, we'll go as analytical as possible. I'm sure you guys have, caught all the noise as well. But anyway, we're talking about our Philippine national volleyball team at V. Lawrence, inaugural pala to, this ASEAN Grand Prix, no?
Yes, it's inaugural. It has been planned as early as 2017, so that should have been the inaugural, but for some reason it did not push through, so that's why the 2019 version became the first.
Right. So parang I'm thinking, this is scheduled just a couple of months away from the SEA Games. Is it more than just a tune-up tournament? What's the overall parang purpose of this Grand Prix being scheduled this close to the SEA Games?
You can categorize it at the middle of being a friendly tournament
Okay.
and like a mini a pocket competition already.
Okay.
But it serves as a perfect tune-up for the Philippine national team already because you're
Right.
competing against essentially the
same squads.
the same squads and the top volleyball nations in Southeast Asia. So these are not countries like Myanmar or Timor-Leste who do have teams, but let's face it, we are still better than those nations. But we're talking about Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, who
Yes.
are the superpowers in this region when it
Right.
comes to the sport. So what a way to measure or what a way to gauge our capabilities and our
Ayun.
performance
Yes.
this early. So
Right.
at least you can still do some adjustments come the SEA Games in December.
Right. And so Lawrence, our national team head coach, Shaq De Los Santos, he had initially very high hopes for his squad, no? As it marched into action versus Indonesia at the Terminal 21 Mall. You know, volleyball fans, though, we've Lawrence and I have been practicing pronouncing these Phi and Malay sounding names, but I'll try my best. It's the Nakhon Ratchasima province or city in Thailand, no? Now, you know, again, Coach Shaq, despite having only a couple of weeks of preparation, missing key players here and there, you know, he believed that, you know, our team was ready to take on the Indonesians, but Lawrence, they encountered a very resilient Indonesian side last night.
Yeah, that's a precise word to put it, resilient. But hats off also to the Philippines because they were able to give the Indonesians a hard time,
Right.
stretching the game in 5 sets. And they nearly won because the 5th set was just won by about 3 points.
Right. And you know, this Indonesian side at the VAT was missing their key player in Aprila Manangang, no?
Yeah.
And they were able to creep back into the match. You know, our side was, you know, I thought they got the groove. You know, after they took the second and third sets, diba?
I believe second and the 4th set.
Final fourth, yeah. But you know, of course, opening set, the tandem of Arcela and Pertiwi, they just overwhelmed us, you know, with their power moves on the opening set. But then here comes the second set. You know, how key was, you know, Majoy Baron just, you know, deflecting their attacks over there.
When we start with the preparation of this team first.
Sige.
So they didn't have much time to prepare.
Well,
because they didn't.
That's an understatement.
So, well, much like Gilas only had 10 days for the World Cup, but that's another story. So they didn't have much time to really have the entire team together.
Yun.
So, come first set, that's evident. That's why Acela and the other Indonesians were able to exploit. Come second set, you'll have necessary adjustments already. And that's why Majoy Baron was able to adjust from the attacks that the Indonesians were doing in the first set. That means that she was able to read the attacks already, and that's why she was able to stabilize the blocking patterns of the Philippines already.
Good.
And that's why she has been vital in that second set victory. She essentially canceled one portion of the court for the Indonesians.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so if you are the shutdown corner, so she's shutting down from the net.
Exactly.
So that's what she did, and that's why the Philippines got the second set.
All right. Now, and you know, after the Philippines was able to build a 2-1 match lead, no? But you know, something just suddenly changed the tune of the match, no, Lawrence? It just favored Indonesia because it just seemed that Wulandri and you know those Indonesian players, they just began to turn the tables on our team, no? And that was very evident when Indonesia took a 7-2 lead over in the 5th set, and you know, it just a series of miscues just did us in,
Yep.
no? Parang ganun yung nakita ko eh.
That comes down again to how much time you had to gel as a team. Indonesia has been playing a lot of friendlies before this without mga their star players. So
Right.
they have been more cohesive coming into this game
Right.
as compared to our nation, our Philippine team. So talent can win you a set or two. So that's what happened.
Exactly.
We do have talented players, so we won 2 sets. But volleyball is a game of adjustments and a game of strategy.
True.
It's not necessarily about who is the strongest hitter.
True.
It's finding the open gaps and the open zones, and that's what the Indonesians were able to do because they know each other's game better
Right.
than the Philippine side, and that's why it took 5 sets for them to take the victory.
Right. Now, of course, one of our athletes has been receiving lots of flack over at social media due to her big service error. That's Tess Molina. I mean, how would you just make sense of this, Lawrence? No, parang I know that was a costly mistake of hers. No?
Definitely.
Pero, I mean, she does get some credit still because I mean she top scored with 18 points still, diba?
Yes, she. So in volleyball, there is what we call cumulative points. So
Right.
it's basically points minus errors. I'm not sure how many errors she did, but that indeed is a costly error, the service error. But regardless of who you put in the national team, there will always be criticism.
Right.
There's always 2 sides of the story, and we always go back to the tenet that you can never please anyone.
Yeah.
So some people would applaud the inclusion of Ces Molina. Some people wouldn't. And knowing volleyball fans being some of the most rabid and vocal,
Definitely.
yeah, I guess my only advice for Ces Molina and for the rest of the national team is there are a lot of voices. You cannot filter these voices
Exactly.
because of social media. There are now a lot of avenues, but
Right.
there are only few that matter. So you listen to the few that matter. And you listen to those that motivate and inspire you and encourage you even more.
Great advice, no, Lawrence. Now, I like what you said about, them. Kasi tayo, we're trying to filter out, lots of. Parang ako rin I was really overwhelmed reading all of this. Pero I think, if you were to put yourself in their shoes, they would also be doing quite the same thing, diba? You would also try to, just put in blinders and blockers right now and just, focus on their task at hand, diba? And so again, credit to Ces Molina who top scored with 18. Majoy Baron added 17, including 5 kill blocks. How about the debut of this Filipino-American recruit Kalei Mao, posting 15 markers in her first tour of duty for the national team?
Good start for Kalei Mao.
Okay.
Needs improvement on the digging. Still,
Right.
but the prowess of the net is there. Ever since she stepped on a PSL court, the prowess was already there. The strength was already there, and before. She had an excuse because she was recovering from a nasty shoulder injury. Now she's fully recovered, but she continues therapy. That's quite an impressive start for Kalei Mao, and I can only see her hoping to improve in the next games against
Yun.
Thailand and Vietnam.
Yun. Now, Lawrence, we got scoring from Ces Molina. We got, points from Majoy Baron. Kalei Mao was over there also. Pero, this squad it's safe to say this is greatly missing the services of injured veteran hitter Alyssa Valdez, no?
Definitely.
And sabi nga ni Larong Volleyball sa Pilipinas President Joey Roman Santa, Laure will fill in for that void, no? But I don't think it's that easy to just supplant the production of an Alyssa Valdez, right?
Definitely, it's not easy to supplant because you have decades of experience internationally.
Right.
Riding in one Alyssa Valdez. It's one thing to play in local leagues, PSL, PVL. But there's a different mentality when it comes to international play.
Right.
You have players that either you have seen them play in person or seen them play in video or haven't seen at all.
Right.
So that means that throughout the game, there is a necessity to adjust. And Eliza Valdez is capable of adjusting her attacks.
This is not a knock on Ea Laure.
Definitely, this is not a knock on A. Laure. She is one of the best players in the UAAP, one of the best hitters. But if you're going to build a squad, so to speak, and you have two cornerstones, Ea Laure and Eliza, definitely choose Eliza.
Of course.
You start leagues with Eliza, and that's how big of a factor her non-participation because of an injury to this national team.
Right.
And it just feels different because for so long you've seen number 2 in the national team. Ever since 2005 or even earlier than that.
Right.
She has been a staple, so there's something different when she's not around. Yeah.
She's been the flag bearer for the national
definitely.
team, diba?
Yeah.
Exactly. But Lawrence, no, apart from Eliza Valdez, and that's a huge blow, no. Also, she was actually the third member who passed up, on the trip to join the national team. Namely, you're missing out on Jaja Santiago, and you're missing out on your Filipino-American setter Iris Tonelada, diba? I mean, due to conflict of schedule. Now, conflict of schedule, we talked about Gilas beforehand over this program. It seems to be an issue hampering the training of our national teams, be it basketball, be it volleyball. Parang isn't that the trend that you noticed too?
It is a trend, but I believe it's an unavoidable trend. It can be avoided.
Yeah.
LVPI knew that because of Jaja Santiago's great performance in her first season in Japan, there is a big reason or a big possibility that she will come back for another season, and she did.
Good.
Knowing that beforehand, you could have talked to Ateneo already, her squad in Japan.
Yun.
That hey, we'll have a SEA game, so
I agree.
Can we request for this much time from Jaja so that she can join the national team? Unfortunately, it didn't happen. They had all the capacity, they had all the machinery to do it, but nothing happened. In the case of Tolenada, I believe it's passport issues that did her in,
Being a Philam kasi.
yeah,
Diba?
and a few some injury concerns also. But the biggest question there, or the biggest hinayang kung baga, is the situation of Jaja, because
Yun.
it could have been ironed out earlier,
Yun.
but they chose to let time pass, so that's why she is now back in Japan and getting ready for a new V-League season.
Right, and I'm sure even Jaja Santiago herself would have wanted, diba?
Yes, she is very vocal to say that if only things were ironed out between the both parties, then she would suit up in this tournament also.
Because the player, Lawrence, they just cannot say na, excuse me from my club for a certain number of weeks, diba? Parang it's beyond their capacity to do that. It takes higher management.
Yeah, especially pro players.
Oh.
That's why even in, just for example, in the PBA, no PBA player can play in the rec leagues and commercial leagues because they are essentially being paid to play for the squad, train for the squad. And that's the same thing with Jaja. So Ateneo Medics now has her contract, so it's part of her obligation to devote her time and effort to this to help the squad win.
Right.
Yeah.
So majority nga nung training camp that Lawrence was mentioning a while ago, roughly only 10 players were playing at that time, diba? And even Coach Shaq mentioned that fifth set breakdown against Indonesia, like what Lawrence mentioned, that reflects their lack of experience in playing together.
Definitely.
Diba?
Yeah.
And now, I know social media. Lots of people are calling out for his head as early as one game with naming the shoo-ins for the coaching spot. You name it, Ramil De Jesus, everyone, diba? Pero judging from his first outing pa lang naman versus Indonesia, Lawrence, what system of play does Coach Shaq try to employ out there from what you see?
It's basically what he has been doing with the Petron Blaze Bikers. The strength of Petron lies with the wings, the hitters. They have Ces Molina and Aiza Maiso and Cici Rondina on the squad. So based on what I saw, it's the offense or majority of the attacks come from the wings. But I guess for Coach Shaq also, because of the lack of time being with his players, he's also adjusting and seeing the capabilities of everyone.
Yun.
That's why he is still trying to make the pieces fit. That's why it's unfair to call for his head after one game.
Yun nga eh.
And besides, it's a 5-setter. So we nearly won.
Yeah.
Okay? If it was a 3-setter and the score is like 25-12, 25-11, 25...
If it was a blowout.
If it was a lousy performance at that, then there is credence to the call. But nevertheless, it still is a 5-setter.
Right.
So the team still fought. Unfortunately, the lack of preparation and the lack of gelling together did them in. That's why Coach De Los Santos and the rest of the squad have from now up until November to gel, mesh, and play cohesively as one unit before the SEA Games.
Right. Well said, no, Lawrence. Our Filipinas are coming off a 12-day training camp in Bangkok. That saw the squad play a series of tune-up games that included, of course, the powerhouse Phi national team and a Japan V-League club, no? The Premier League club, the Torre Arrows, no? Lawrence, you mentioned about, them being skill-wise, over there. They can compete, no?
Yeah.
Pero again, that chemistry it just doesn't happen overnight kasi.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, and this was very evident when they faced this Japanese club team, the Torre Arrows, diba? Well, when they wrapped up their training camp in Bangkok, Thailand, of course they only finished up with 2 sets versus Torre, diba? Pero how about that? That game, no? Torre Arrows, they just absolutely, defeated this the finally complete 14-woman Pinay squad, diba? Even with, members just finally linking up, it's just wasn't enough to topple this club, no? Was it?
Definitely, because it takes time to build a championship squad.
True.
Well, best example again in basketball, PBA. San Miguel Beermen were not built overnight. It was a series of drafts and free agency, and now you have the deadliest lineup in the PBA.
Yes.
So basically, also in the V League, the time that these players devote for training in clubs is exponential. They really devote hours and hours to hone their craft. And the fact that they're together for hours, so they can squeeze in sessions of getting to know each other, breaking the ice, knowing each other well beyond the court. So it adds confidence to play with 5 other people. Whereas you pick 6 people who do know each other but haven't played together for so long.
Yeah.
That's why it wasn't surprised that a Japanese club, because Japanese volleyball is one of the best in the world also.
True.
So a Japanese club was able to decimate the Philippine national team mainly because they are more prepared to play.
Exactly. Well said. Now, Well, I think the positive that we can draw out of them wrapping up this Bangkok training camp was the arrival of the long anticipated arrival of you got your setter Gia Morado, you have Jovelyn Gonzaga joining. We mentioned Ea Laure a while ago, Madi Madayag joining the fold, and also assistant coach Kung Fu Reyes, diba? Finally linking up with the squad. In general, no, Lawrence, what do you see in these late additions? What do they bring to the national team's overall development and structure, at least with Morado, Gonzaga, and Madayag finally joining them?
Madayag, you now have a deadly blocking duo and a young duo at that with Baron and Madayag.
And they formed a very potent combo.
Yeah.
Diba?
They are tall, so that is an advantage. But more importantly, they're agile inside the court. They can cover from side to side quickly. Right. So that's an advantage for having a Madi Madayag and a Majoy Baron inside. Of course, Gia Morado, we know what Gia Morado could do. Stability in the court, playmaking, decision making.
Definitely.
And those quick attacks on ball number 2 that she just drops to the other side of the court. And Jovelyn Gonzaga, you have an able opposite spiker also. It's funny that all of the opposite spikers of the Philippine national team are left-handed. You have Maiso Pontillas and Jovelyn Gonzaga.
Come to think about it.
Yeah, they're all left-handed. So left-handed hitters, they just have a natural curve for the ball as compared to righty. Just like in baseball, there's just a natural curve when a left-handed player throws the ball.
It spins different.
Yes. And that translates to volleyball also. Right. There's a different spin, there's a different angle the ball goes. And that helps, especially with a bionic lady like Jovelyn Gonzaga who can play three 5-setter matches in 3 days. So you have that endurance from Gonzaga, of course, play also scoring, the stability that Gia Morado brings, and the agility and the blocking capability that Madayag brings at the net.
Right. But in terms of schemes and tactics, now how does Kung Fu Reyes try to complement what Coach Shaq tries to employ out there?
I guess Kung Fu is he is the one trying to squeeze in or implement quick plays. Coach Shaq, when you see Petron, it's more of lessening your errors. That's their mentality. They do have the players to minimize the errors. So for them, their basic play would be they get the first ball and then the Makulangan sets the second ball very well to either any hitter or Mika Reyes at the middle. Kung Fu, if you'll notice in UST, most especially game 1 of season 81 finals, they were able to neutralize Madayag and De Leon because they sped up the game. They sped up the game in such a way that we know that the blocking schemes of Ateneo are solid. So we'll attack before they can even set up. So that's what happened in game 1. And ever since, it has been Coach Kung Fu's philosophy, especially now that he has a younger squad in place in España because Rondina is already out. So you have a younger core. You have Ea Laure essentially leading a squad of second-year players and incoming rookies. The only veterans that you've had will be Bicar and Viray and Pacres. Aside from those, it's all first-year, second-year players. So expect UST because of Coach Kung Fu's philosophy to he is the one who will try to inject a quicker pace of the game for the national team, and discipline also because Coach Kung Fu is part of the Philippine Army.
Right, so that's a lot of straight-laced discipline for you, no? Ganun yun. So hopefully, Lawrence, it meshes well, with
definitely
with Shaq trying to put in that discipline, less errors and more control, and then with Coach Kung Fu again, what you mentioned, putting in quick plays to just speed up the pace, diba? Now, the Philippines will actually go up against Thailand later this afternoon.
Tougher challenge.
Now, Lawrence, no, just looking at the tune-up game results, no, we lost to the Thailand under 23 team. You only won a single set against of course, the Phi senior squad. Diba? You were able to eke out a win against the Phi under 23 squad, and then you wrapped up the Phi competition by winning all 4 sets against Bangkok University. But still though, Lawrence, it seems Thailand just has our number, no? Parang just what makes this Thai volleyball system just so darn dominant, diba? That their players get recruited to become imports here.
Yep.
They also become coaches over here. Diba? Just for you, like, just what makes them so just formidable, this Phi volleyball system?
First of all, I believe it's the appreciation for the sport itself.
Okay.
If this is an informal survey, but I guess next to football, volleyball would be the second most popular sport in Thailand. It's not even basketball, yes.
Wow.
Because there are more players who participate in volleyball than in basketball. That's why their volleyball program has been consistently good, but their basketball program, they have always been under us. So that's the trade-off.
Okay.
And they the association, the Thailand Volleyball Association, is so good at discovering talent throughout the country.
Wow.
They really go out to places.
Wow.
Best example of which are their 3 veterans. So that's Plumjit, Wilavan, and Nutsara.
Right.
So ano na yun super veterans din kasi beyond 35 na silang tatlo eh. But still, they are performing at a high level.
Amazing.
And they were discovered from the provinces. So they're not necessarily from Bangkok and
or big cities.
The big cities. So
wow.
So they really go to places, discover, and they have it in PE classes also, volleyball.
Wow.
So it's really embedded in the school system
or sporting culture, diba?
In the sporting culture of Thailand. So no wonder that the under 23 squad was able to dominate the national team because they have been playing this sport constantly ever since they were young.
Yeah.
And they have been together since they were young. Baka nga sila na rin yung under 18, under 15 yan. And then they just go up the ranks. And that's why that again we go back to cohesiveness and togetherness and having a unique style of play which is quick and sharp and fast because they're not blessed with height also, so they have to quicken up the pace. So that's why Thailand has been the powerhouse in Southeast Asian volleyball, and also one of the best teams in the world because they keep on qualifying in tournaments like the Volleyball Nations League, bigger tournaments, even the Women's World Championship last year, because they facilitate the sport very well within the culture that they have.
Right. Now, Lawrence, that's from what you said, that's a daunting task mamaya ang hapon for our national team. Now, coming from this Indonesia game, no, Lawrence, this just the major adjustment to at least give a good fight versus Thailand.
Main adjustment would be floor defense because you have every other base covered already. You have spikers, you have attackers. You have Kalimao, you have Molina, you have Gonzaga and Maiso Pontillas. You have blockers already in Baron and Madaya and Abi Maranyo. But it's the floor defense that is still needs improvement for this squad. You do have Macandili and Arado, two of the best liberos in the Philippines, but they can only do so much. They can only cover one zone. You cannot have them fly throughout the court to dig those balls. So, and knowing Thailand would prefer a quick pace of the game, they would employ a lot of quick sets. They would try to establish the game of Plumjit, yung mga running slides early on. And then their quick hits from the likes of Ajaraporn and Chachuan. You really have to be be cat quick or adept in catching the balls that are going down.
Okay.
Kasi yun ang madalas mong makikita against Thailand.
Yeah.
So that's the main improvement that they have to do. If they can stabilize the hits of Thailand and lessen the scoring opportunities, then we'll have a ball game. We'll have a match. Yeah.
All right. Hopefully, it goes. Later, social media will be a little bit more reserved. No, not necessarily quiet, but a bit more reserved with voicing out their comments. I know volleyball is a huge passion for majority of Filipinos, diba?
Yeah.
So, sana naman we're all on the same page. We keep on supporting our national team in this ASEAN Grand Prix. Now, Lawrence, also. It's good to know that we will be the hosts of the second leg of the Grand Prix slated on October 4 to 6 in Santa Rosa, Laguna.
Yep.
Now again, coming from what you mentioned about the FI Volleyball Association, being very hands-on in the development, especially in the grassroots programs. Now, a major cause for concern again over in the second leg is again possible conflicts of schedule with club leagues, because apart from Eliza Valdez, Gio Morado, Jovelyn Gonzaga, Madi Manalig, and Ea Laure, who are all currently playing in the PVL, there's a good chance they won't be there, diba? It says a lot about how your volleyball leagues are structured, diba, with the scheduling, and we mentioned about that earlier. Pero coming from you, what's just the best way to get around and avoid these types of problems from occurring in the future when you got league schedules coinciding, unfortunately, with national team preparations?
Yeah, and glad that you mentioned that, because I believe in the second leg it would be a PSL team competing for
parang all
the
star
Philippines.
teams.
Yes. So, well, the best way to put it, but it's not easy to accomplish, is to have one league. It's not easy.
Simpler
because
said than done.
yes, it's easy to put it on paper, but to execute it, it's another thing.
Yes.
There is it's not blown up, but there is a rift, or like a divide. Yeah, that's a better term. A divide between the PSL and the PVL.
Yep.
There have been signs of cooperation lately, but overall, there still are two separate entities.
Right.
Just imagine if you have one league, you have all of the best players in one league, aside instead of switching between leagues. And sometimes, when you have two leagues, there are rabid fans in one league and rabid fans in the other.
Yes.
And that adds to the social media banter or the social media discussions that are unnecessary. So, if you have one league, then it's easy to schedule around these tournaments.
Yun.
And also, the number of games to be played in a week can also be detrimental, because just imagine a PSL team or a PVL team could play as much as 2 games a week, and trying to squeeze an international tournament when you're playing 2 games a week.
That's hectic.
That's hectic,
Yes.
and it takes a toll on the body. So it's easier said than done, but the only solution that we can have is to have one league.
Yes.
Have its schedule be built around the tournaments, because you'll have tournaments. So you'll be able to prepare for it. That's even a frustration with the PBA, because you knew that coming in you have the World Cup, but you still had to squeeze in a third conference.
Right.
That's another story. So one league and then one schedule, and then we'll be able to deal with this conflict of schedule matters already.
The simpler the better.
Yeah.
Diba? You'll get players released from their clubs in time.
Yes.
You'll get your league finished in time, so that the national team preparation wouldn't have anything hampering it.
Yes.
Diba? Wouldn't have anything disrupting it. But again, that is the world we live in, volleyball fans.
It's the ideal, but expectation is always different from reality. Yeah.
But anyways, so later, Lawrence, again, our Philippine volleyballs go up against the powerhouse of the Southeast Asian region, which is Thailand. It's going to be on 3 p.m. today.
Yep.
So again, Lawrence has said floor defense is a major adjustment, and hopefully Coach Shaq and Coach Kung Fu listen to him and avoid getting their heads called for
I hope my head doesn't get called up also on social media.
But anyways, to our listeners and followers over here, Radyo Katipunan Sports, to our Ateneo Lady Eagles fans, and also our Philippine volleyball fans, again, Lawrence Andrew Fernandez, thank you so much for
It's been a pleasure.
sharing your analysis on our Lady Eagles and as well as the Philippine national team. Hopefully, they can get a win later. And again, for volleyball fans out there, for basketball fans out there, Lawrence is the voice and the brains behind the Limahan podcast. Lawrence, where can we follow it again?
Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast.
All right, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. Again, Lawrence Andrew Fernandez, my friend and batchmate from the Newbies Broadcasting Academy, for some volleyball talk over here at Radyo Katipunan Sports. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much. Peace.
Peace.
Radyo Katipunan. News,